Hi everyone, as requested, here's how I make kimchi jjigae. So there's no real hard and fast rule about it as far as I know. This is just what I do. I'm going to use the white part of some scallions and garlic for extra flavor. I like to chop up some things at least ahead of time. So here I'm just chopping up the scallions and then I'm going to move on to the garlic. And this just adds like a little bit more flavor, especially because I'm not going to end up using any broth. I don't have any on hand, so adding some of this stuff now helps it taste better later. I'll also apologize for weird angles and also how incredibly violent I crush garlic. Okay, now that the garlic and the scallion are chopped, I'm going to prepare my kimchi. Kimchi liquid is actually the main source of flavor for a lot of this. So actually squeezing out the kimchi water is a big part of actually making kimchi jjigae. And even several Korean websites that I've looked up have actually said the liquid has to be well fermented. It needs that spiciness and that sourness to really give it a good taste. So this is actually a relatively brand new bottle of kimchi. If you've got something older, it would probably taste a little better. So I'm going to save as much of the water as I can after taking some out not only from the jar, but I'm also going to squeeze out as much water as possible from the kimchi, which is a messy job, but it does lead to a good product in the end if that helps. After all the water has been squeezed out, I'm going to roughly chop it into smaller pieces. This isn't whole cabbage kimchi, this has already been cut up a bit, so I don't really need to chop it up that much, just enough so that it's not a huge gigantic piece that will be boiling hot in my mouth. After that, I'm going to turn on the stove and I'm actually going to saute all these ingredients in butter just because it makes it taste even better. I am using some salted butter, maybe about a tablespoon or so. You don't have to, you can just use regular oil, you can use unsalted butter, you can use whatever you like. A pro tip actually is if you are actually cooking fatty meat, like maybe you've got some leftover ham, I usually end up using leftovers no matter what, or you splashed out for some really expensive pork belly, I would actually say to fry the pork belly first, or the fat from the ham, and use that oil to fry the kimchi and any other seasonings that you want to give it a little more taste. It actually does taste very different after that. So here I'm just going to saute things, whatever it is that I've decided to use, and it's going to just take a couple of minutes. I'm only sauteing it until the garlic becomes kind of fragrant. Maybe it's starting to get a little golden. You don't really want to burn scallions too much because once they burn, they don't taste really fun either. After a little bit, you just add your kimchi and you're going to fry that for a little bit. It doesn't really need to like cook. You can tell by the jump cuts that it's only been a couple of minutes. So give it some stirring. You don't want it to burn. It can burn, it will burn. It will not taste good if it burns. So here I've got some leftover Italian sausage. It's already been blanched or boiled. If you have raw meat or raw sausage, I actually recommend you cook it off way ahead of time. Or rather, I would suggest you cook the meat if it's raw and use the fat from it for sauteing everything like I just mentioned not too long ago. But you could also just let sausage boil in the soup if you wanted. You could just let hot dogs boil in the soup if you wanted. It's not a big deal if you don't pre-cook it or saute it first. But like I said, I usually end up using leftovers for kimchi jjigae. With everything prepared, I'm just going to put the sausage in with the garlic, scallions, and kimchi, and also let it fry up a little bit. Here's a shot of what it looks like in the pan. So after a couple of minutes of frying, just to heat up everything, I'm going to add my kimchi water. Don't mind how big the measuring cup is. You just don't want a lot of splash everywhere. Then this is actually water. I don't have any broth, but I was rinsing out the remaining kimchi water left inside the measuring cup. That's why it's got a bit of tint. So if you do have broth, I suggest you use it. After a couple of minutes, it comes to a boil, and that's when I add my ramen. I'm using Shin ramen because I like it, and I also want it to be more spicy, and Shin ramen is actually kind of spicy. If you actually do not like spicy food, absolutely okay to just use chicken ramen or maybe shrimp ramen, beef ramen, whatever you have that you actually like. Also, if you don't want it very spicy, just don't add as much kimchi water, add water or broth or what have you. So it's very flexible that way. If you want it more spicy, there's always adding gochujang, which is the chili pepper paste. You'll also note I didn't put a huge ton of water in prior to this step, and that's because I didn't want to drink that much soup. So I'm going to let it boil until the ramen is soft. Also going to add a little soy sauce because it could use a little bit more flavor. You can also add some sesame oil or anything else you like. And then I'm going to actually add an egg because I actually like having eggs in my kimchi jjigae. I'm only going to add one though. So after the egg has been added, I like to let it poach for a little bit, and then I like to break the yolk and actually try to emulsify it into the soup. It makes the soup feel a little thicker and it makes it taste a little richer. Depending on how successful you are, you either do actually get this emulsification / thickening, or you just end up with scrambled egg in your soup. Either way, it still tastes fine. And now, if you are not lazy like me, you can pour all this into a bowl and then garnish it. I'm kind of lazy. I'm just eating it in the pot. So I'm garnishing it with the greens from the scallions, and I'm going to eat it with the chopsticks I just cooked it with. Enjoy, and I hope you had fun watching.